Well, hello everybody and welcome. This is our 11th session studying Karma Chamé's wonderful text about the union of Mahamudra and Mahasandhi, otherwise known as Dzogchen, in the Chenrezig practice. So good morning or good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. And just a second. Okay, I have to click on things. So we're recording. Yeah. So let's start by remembering how beautiful you are. I'm not talking about what you see in the mirror. I'm talking about who you really are. You are so good. You are so pure. There's something very wonderful and perfect inside all of us. It's beautiful. And it is at peace with everything and everyone. It's the final resolution of all of our problems, and it's there already, just waiting to be tuned into. So let's just be that in a moment of delightful love for all beings, and think that we're here to learn, to grow, to become, in our relative life, a better human being, a treasure, a light, a brilliance that shines in all those we meet and leaves something very, very precious in their life and makes beautiful connections for future lives when we will all meet again and again, better and better. I've got a fan going because it's very hot, but it's blowing all the papers. Okay, let's try. We take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the community of most noble minds. From this moment on until we reach the very heart of enlightenment, through our practice of generosity and all 6 transcendent virtues, paramita, may we reach total awakening, every enlightened quality, to be able to truly help sentient beings so lost in their samsaras. May each and every being be well. May they live long and be healthy, be well provided for, have good friends, and find respect. May they live in places of peace and plenty, and most of all, may they practice Dharma. May they each create the causes for those good circumstances to be their wealth in all their future lives. May they be freed from suffering and from creating causes of future suffering. May they discover the natural, sacred well-being totally beyond suffering and attain the great equanimity, free of closeness or distance from anyone. Dhyata shame shamavati shameta shadru kurimam kurimara jite karota keori Tejuwati oloyane bishuddha nimale malapanaye kukure kaka grase grasana o muki paramuki amuki shamedawani sawa graha bandhanane nigrihitva sawa bhava prabodina vimukta marabhasha savitva buddha mudra anudgatita sava mare buttarita parishude biga shantu sava mara Kamani. Glorious Guru, source of all blessing, ever present above our head, on lotus and moon seat, through your immense kindness ever sustain us, that the accomplishments of body, speech, and mind flow from you, and we are one. So here we are in Karma Chamé's very special text. It's special if we're practicing Mahamudra. It's special if we're practicing Dzogchen. It's special if we're practicing Chenrezig, because it shows us how all three can come together very simply, absolutely perfectly, giving you all you need to practice the deepest, most powerful teachings the Buddha ever gave. This text is in 8 songs, and in the first song we saw why it is so precious to focus everything just on this practice of Chenrezig. And so the relevance in particular for us. And as we see in Song 2 and Song 3, about how we've got a precious, precious existence just now, but we're gifted with it very temporarily. We don't know how long we will have this gift. So we need to focus on it. But the message for us is not to get lost. Not to get lost in the world, in samsara, of course, but not to get lost in all of the busyness of Buddhism as a religion. There's so many things you can do, and they're good things. They're not bad. They're not bad. It's a question of efficiency, I suppose we'd say these days. Using your precious, impermanent, wonderful life as best as possible. So how can we do that? And there are so many things you can do as a sort of Buddhist, and they're good things. But then if you want to really use your life, then put all your eggs in this one basket of Chenrezig practice, seen through the highest view, which is Mahamudra or Dzogchen. So that's the first song, really is encouraging us to do that. And then the second song reminds us how rare our precious human existence is, and what a wonderful gift it is. But rare is the point, because, I don't think you feel rare, do you? You don't feel like Frodo in Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. You don't even know you've got a magic wand. So you don't feel like, out of all the 8 billion humans on this planet, I'm one of the rare ones where all of these circumstances have come together as a wonderful gift. So we heard about that, and we did that one. And now we're in this third song, or third chapter, which is about 2 enormous topics, 2 very powerful topics: impermanence and karma, cause and effect. Within karma, cause and effect, as a topic, we include what is often a separate topic, which is the suffering of the 6 realms, because it's karma, comma, or if you're looking at the screen, comma that way, karma, comma, cause and effect. That's what karma is. So when we look at the effects, the results, the fruition of karma, then we're looking at rebirth in the 6 realms, with the good points and the bad points, the sort of, what do they call it? End of year accounts, when you see, how did your business do this year? What were the profits? What were the loss? Good points? An audit. It's kind of an audit of karma. So that's where we are in the song itself. And before we carry on with the next verses, which are about the sufferings of the 6 realms, what you need to know is this text assumes you've studied karma and you've got a very, very good idea what the Buddha's teachings on it are. This is not a text teaching you for the first time about karma. It assumes you know. In a way, it assumes you know about Mahamudra too, and that you've been practicing, or that you've been practicing Dzogchen. So it is sort of a master class, top of the top, end of the road teaching that we are, how can you say, sampling. But it does assume you know about karma. And what I can't do in an hour or a few hours, or even, if we had 6, 7 sessions, I can't teach karma, cause and effect, and in the effects, all of the different dimensions of the 6 realms of samsara. So as we go through these verses, if it doesn't make much sense to you, then please check out somewhere else. Like in Gampopa's text, a very clear, detailed structure of the teachings on karma, non-virtuous karma, virtuous karma, meditation karma. It's called immobility karma, because it's what's the karma we make when we do nothing? When your mind is still, your body is still. It's different from when we're doing things to other people, to society, to the environment, with our body and speech. Here we shut them up, and we just, so when it's good meditation, shamatha, what's happening? Nothing, but it makes karma. And the strange thing is, it makes some of the most powerful karma. So we need to know, if we know karma completely, we need to know about that, because it explains how some very, how can you say, sublime minds and beings ended up how they were, because of shamatha and vipassana practice in previous lives. So this is assuming we know that, and the main point in this section, in the verses we'll approach today, is and as I mentioned at length last time, we may know the teachings and the facts, but there's a bit of us that doesn't want to know, and which is in a state of sort of shutting out, denial, kind of, yeah, give me some Dzogchen man, give me some clear light, give me some deep teachings, a doha or two maybe, so that I can identify with the top. But do you really feel like this life is just like today in this life, one day in the life of? This is one life in the lives of. Do you really feel like that? Are you prepared for death? Really? Huh? Are you already programming your future lives? Do you even believe in it? So, Karma Chamé, he's a wise teacher. So let me take a little detour for something a retreat master said in a retreat where I was interpreting. He said, so these people in retreat, they're there, they've done the 6 yogas of Naropa. They're this very advanced teachings, yogic practices, Tummo. They've received deep instructions on the mind. They've done almost a year of shamatha all day long, every day, and so on. So he said, then what's happening, because that's the truth of the matter, in retreat for most people. He says, you're practicing all of this, but you haven't got the goodies. It's not as though you've got lots of realization and you're kind of on the path and liberated and wonderful blessing things are happening all the time. So he said, what's wrong? What's wrong with your practice? Because you've been given the deepest the lineage can give you. It can't give you more than Mahamudra. It can't give you more than the 6 yogas. So what's wrong? He says, you'll be realizing yourself as you do the practice that your bodhicitta isn't really up to par. It's not good enough. I mean, how many, if you could audit your mind, seems to be the word today, audit your mind every second of the day. I don't know how many seconds there are in a day. Don't bother calculating, there's a lot. Out of those seconds, how many seconds were you truly loving and caring for all other beings and feeling totally given to them? And how many seconds were you thinking about yourself, your own mind, your practice, your body, your needs? And so you realize that your bodhicitta, both in quantity, how many moments in the day are you really in a space of total love and sacrifice, your whole life for everybody else? And then in quality, how deep does that go? Is your love totally overwhelming compassion for all beings and sensitivity to their state and so on? So it says you realize the reason your Vajrayana practice, which you've got now and you're doing, is not working, is because your bodhicitta isn't there supporting it second after second. And then you work on your bodhicitta and you realize it makes a difference. But then when you do that really and truly, and you are concerned, gosh, I'm poor in bodhicitta, and you really want to improve it, you realize you never really took refuge deeply enough. And, you don't have the respect and the understanding of what Buddha did and how Buddha is everywhere. And as a refuge for you, you're still taking refuge in yourself and lots of other things. And the Dharma, you're practicing it, you're here in retreat, but what Dharma really is, you never really explored to the point where you went, wow, and you took refuge in it from your heart. And the Sangha, all of those, in all the levels of Sangha, monks, nuns, bodhisattvas, yogis, yoginis, you never realized what they did. You never thought about it to the point where you felt them all around you, and you think, help me, I take refuge in you. And so practicing the deepest, highest teachings takes you back to really working on your refuge and then on your bodhicitta. So this message of Karma Chamé in these verses is very much like this. It's reminding us that all the time we're producing karma and that it has its consequences. That's it for the moment. Blah, blah, blah about what we're doing. Karma itself, we get the basic information in Gampopa and other places. And I've done talks on it on YouTube. You can go and look at them. But karma is reality. It's complicated. Everything that's happening to you right now is karma. And it's only happening to you, and the person next door has got their karma. Every single thing in there has its causes. Often in past lives. Karma is as complex as life itself. Like just now, I've got a glass of water here, all right? This glass didn't just appear out of nowhere. Somebody made it. And it was made in a factory, shipped, put in a shop, bought by me. This water fell out the sky because of all stuff that makes rain, and then it went to a reservoir, and then it went to the local water cleansing place, came into my tap, full of goodness knows what, so I put it through a filter. What made this water the water it is? So many causes behind it, and causes behind those causes. Everything, this screen I'm looking at, every molecule of my body is part of cause and effect. So we study cause and effect in science, in the material world. We've done that very well. Everything has reasons and causes, and we're discovering more and more on the material level, but not on the mental level, and not how mind and matter are inseparable, and not how our deeds of body, speech, and mind, motivated by the mind that's there in that instant, how they can produce results. So it's a huge topic. It requires learning, and it requires not just learning, but a lot of reflection and contemplation. Just take one point, for example. Little can produce much, much can produce little. So not in Christianity, really, in the Old Testament, you've got the famous thing, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So if you did, for instance, if in a past life you had blinded somebody, then does that mean that that same person is going to come back in the future and blind you in exactly the same way in some life? The eye for the eye. I'm not quite sure about the tooth. I suppose somebody punched a tooth out or something. But anyway, take the eye. Then we see that from a little thing, like hurting somebody's eye a little, but with a very vicious mind, they might not be blind. But out of that, you could be blind for many, many lifetimes because your mind behind it was so vicious. So from little can come much, not one eye for one eye. Or from much can come little. Maybe, what we did, we sprayed something on the garden and blinded 1,000 insects. They couldn't see anymore. Then they died because they couldn't eat and function. From much, but because you didn't intend to hurt them, and because once you realized the damage you've done, you had regret and you needed purification straight afterwards. Then even though there was a lot of damage, maybe that's very tiny, you just need glasses in a future life, if you're born somewhere where people wear glasses, or whatever they do. So things like that, how does it work, requires a lot of reflection. So having given those few words, let's go back to the text. And I won't spend a lot of time on it, not because it's not important, but because it's straightforward. And I can't quite remember. I think we're on this verse. Please correct me if we did it last time. I think the next verse to do starts, led away by the terrifying, dreadful emissaries of Yama. Did we do that? Yes? Nod for yes or nod for no?
Yes. Kenneth, we're up to page 18. I've got it down as verse 30, when you cannot bear being lightly clothed.
All right, okay, thank you very much. So Anne says not sure about getting the Tibetan, so let's do the Tibetan for the Yama verse. Yeah. Jishin Yana Shinje Ponya Tree. Well, we did it, I remember doing this. Lenche Ladan Tree Gedikshe. Zunji Mipen Melon Yikchungsa. Narache Jopidushik No Ang. Gewadu Jang. Nochi Sol Kungme. Shinje Jalpu. Kanak Shenchiche. Dedu Jome Datara Madrumna Rangi Ranglu Dome Ningmeye. So in that verse, we've got to the time. Now we've been going through death, dying bardo. We did that last time, and then what's called clear light or clarity bardo, and then the becoming bardo. And yeah, thanks, Paul. That's where we are. I'm just recapping on the other one. Thank you very much. And there's this thing of yama, which is, how can you say? But it's an experience people have. Okay, but more generally, it's the fact that your own mind carries its history, and at the time of death, we remember the harm we've done and the karma we carry. So it's like looking in a mirror. Okay, so now we move on from there. And it says, now it's talking about the 6 realms. We're going to go through them one after another. The worst possible rebirth is in what's called the hells. Or let's put it another way. Hell is a name we give to the worst possible rebirth. I think that's a better way of putting it. Because skeptics, people in doubt, our own mind wonders, are there hells? Seems very, very extreme. So I did mention that last time. It's very real. You go in, it's not the hells. Hells are hells. They are states of mind. But if we want an idea of a bit of a hellish state of mind while we're still human, you go to the locked wards, psychiatric institutions, and you can have no doubt the mind can go through hell, and it can seem never-ending. But we're not talking about a sort of hellish state of human existence. We're talking about all the time, non-stop rebirth in a state of great pain and desperation. So in that, some of the experiences that people have are hot and burning, and some of them are icy cold. So they're called hot hells and cold hells. In case you're wondering, Gampopa says when he's discussing a debate between different Buddhist schools, do the hells actually exist as places? And like the people there who hurt you, are they sentient beings or not? Gampopa says very clearly, hells are a state of mind. And the beings you experience there hurting you are not other sentient beings, and it's their karma to be there hurting you. They are all projections of your own mind's karma. It's where your past deeds have taken you. It's your worst possible nightmare become a state of being after death. And so hot and cold, we get reborn in hell because we really hurt other people with a vicious mind. And so a vicious mind, when you think of it, can be hot or cold. We can hurt other people out of anger and hatred. And there's really, can you say, you're boiling. Does that make some sense? You are hot-headed, heated up, and it's a viciousness. But other types of hatred can be very cold, can be very calculating, and people might know the harm they do, but they don't care. Maybe to make money, other people are enslaved, are killed, are poisoned, are exploited. And it's not at all out of boiling anger. It is cold, calculating, couldn't care. Looking down on people, they don't matter. So that's why we get hot hells and cold hells. The mind behind the deed. So it says at present, you cannot bear even the contact of a spark. Yet the flames of hell are 7 times hotter than the fires of the human realms. Ask yourself how your mind will be able to cope with being boiled and burned for eons, without even the relief of death. So there we'd need to go into the technical details of the hell realms and what goes on, and there are so many different ones. But like with the burning, you can burn yourself as a human. You can burn yourself a little bit. It talks about a spark here. If a spark comes off a fire and it's kind of ouch and you can pat it out, it hurt, but it doesn't hurt as much as if you pour boiling water on your hand and then you've got to put it under a tap, and that is going to hurt a lot more. And it's a kind of a deeper hurt. And we get different kind of levels of fire and burning. So it says, if you get reborn in those hells because of the cruel way you've harmed other people out of anger, or sentient beings out of anger, beaten them, killed them because they hurt you, insects, animals, then when you die, often you don't go through a bardo, you just go straight there. Your karma takes you straight, and it lasts for an unimaginably long time. So if you are confident you don't have that karma from this life or past lives, see, you can have that karma not from this life where you didn't hurt anybody, but from past lives, and maybe in this life you used up all your positive karma in pleasure. So when you've used up your positive karma, then the karma that's left takes over. So it says we're not thinking about that even, the possibility that could be your next life. There's one text that says even the great god Brahma, who's got wonderful karma, Brahma's life just now is, well, what were the humans would say, that's as good as it gets. But it says Brahma's karma is that when this beautiful life he has ends, will be to reborn in the hell realms because of past karma and having used up all the good karma that got Brahma to where Brahma is now. So it says, are you thinking about these things? And if we do, then of course we want to do a purification practice. And we give good time every day to purifying the karma we carry from past lives. We're thinking about the future. We're planning it. We're making it as good as it can be. So, data meta pakpa mizona miimele nyalme tunjurtsa chijume para kalpara soyangsek, che parashena, chicha simlatri. Next verse says, when you cannot bear being lightly clothed for even one winter's day, what will you do when without being able to die, you are frozen in ice without clothes for eons? So this is the cold hells. There are 8 main cold hells. And it's saying that just now, when it gets cold and if you've gone out and you can't bear it, you have to, if you're too lightly clothed, then how will it be if you are to be reborn in those states without being able to die? And it said that in the previous verse too. You see, the worst that can happen if you're human, and humans do freeze to death, is that you die. And then it's finished. Death is kind of a relief. Or if you're severely burned, you die through your burns, and that particular suffering's over. The point about the hell realms is because they're states of mind, is you can't die. It just goes on, and there's no way out. And on and on. Some hell realms are a bit different. It ends, so you kind of die for a little bit. There's the understanding of relief, and then the whole thing starts up again. And it stops briefly. There's sort of brief death. Anyway, the details are in other texts. Gunka Shakchik Gersap Mizana Kalpara Gume Chakpi Bupsu Jar Chijume Parajuna Chidrache. What you going to do? So we think about it. So it says, it's talking about Nyungne practice for those who do it. When you maintain silence and fasting just now, you feel giddy. What will you do later on when you never even hear the words food and drink for thousands of years without even the respite of death? This is talking about the ghost realm, hungry ghosts. And I don't know if some of you have done Nyungne practice. There we fast for a whole day, no food, no drink, and we maintain silence. So very often, physically you feel a bit weak from that. You get giddy, you feel energyless, let's say. It says, even if you find that so hard to bear, I just spent the best part of a week feeling giddy. I had a bit of a problem, and it's quite terrible. I mean, it's one thing if your body's hurting and you're ill, but you can negotiate life. But when you're like a drunkard, staggering from one place to another, holding on to things so that you can manage. So he says, imagine that through hunger and thirst, it just goes on, and you spend all your time dreaming of a bit of food, a drop of water. But because of your karma, where you've deprived other people of food, of drink, of what they need to live for your own benefit, you've exploited others, then you can be reborn as one of these ghosts that suffer more than we could ever imagine, even if we take the text so seriously. It says when Buddha teaches how these beings are suffering, and there are so many of them, then it says bodhisattvas faint. They faint they cannot bear to think how horrible it is. Data Ngakche sungna lesukor lodrang tondra ze kom dramedra onjang chimme nuna chiminuna chidrayu. The next one's quite, it's not funny at all, but it's funny if you know Tibetans and Asiatics, right? To be called a dog is a terrible insult. I'm not sure in Europe if you called somebody a dog, it's not nice. But, in Asia and for Tibetans, now, and then Tibetans are culturally, let's say, very proud. You can really insult a Tibetan. Don't do it. Don't do it. An insulted Tibetan for an enemy you don't want. I've had one or two, I can tell you. They really take it seriously. They won't forget. And I'm thinking of one in particular, and we ended up, it was my fault, I was a bit naughty. I did insult them publicly. I shouldn't have done. I regretted it, but a couple of years later I met that person at a conference in Washington, and as soon as he saw me, he went red. His whole face went red. There was this, I could kill you kind of look. He was on the podium giving a talk. I was in the audience when he spotted me. And, the violence is terrible. So you need to know that about Tibetans. And lots of Tibetans carry a knife, big knife. It's sort of like between a small sword and a knife. And if they're insulted, they can easily kill another person. It's in Tibetan culture. It's not in Buddhism. Nothing to do with Buddhism. Tibetan culture is like that. So this is what Karma Chamé is referring to. If someone today called you an old dog, you'd pull out your knife, right? You couldn't. Just the thought that somebody could think of you, call you a dog. He said, but what would you do if you were really reborn as a dog? At present, you can just run away from armies or enemies. But what to do if reborn in the realm of the demigods? Just now you feel despair at the slightest loss of position, so the suffering of relinquishing a divine body will be unbearable. He's talking about now, very briefly, about 3 realms. You see, this isn't a teaching on karma, cause and effect. It's trying to get us to remember how powerful karma is and how these things could happen in the next life or the life afterwards. So we've got the animal realm, the dog, we've got the demigods realm, the asuras, and then the deva realms. Sufferings of the animal realms are mainly that they're being hunted and torn apart and eaten by other animals. That's mainly what the animal realm's about. They're all eating each other, and they're afraid, many of them, of being eaten. I often say, a bird is such a beautiful thing, it can fly. How wonderful to fly from tree to tree, to fly over the oceans and so on. But then if you look at birds, they're all the time looking over their shoulder for predators. Cats, foxes, bigger birds, so on. So in the animal realm, there's being hunted, being pursued, there's being enslaved by humans, exploited. So all the animals that are in factory farms are going through terrible suffering because of humans. Oops. So anyway, we read about the sufferings of the animal realms, and the main suffering, from our point of view, not from their point of view because they don't know, is stupidity. So very, reflecting on the animal realms is really, it's an amazing reflection when you really set your mind to it. Animals can have qualities we don't have. Your dog would die for you. I don't know how many people you'd die for, but sometimes your dog would die for you. They say this funny thing, if you shut your dog in the car boot for 3 hours and you open the boot, he'll thank you for letting him out. He won't resent you for shutting him in there. If it's another sort of animal, if you could do it with an elephant or a camel, they'd remember and they'd punish you. Dogs, they can be so kind and so faithful. We can learn that from them. Animals can have emotional qualities, being qualities we don't have. How quietly they can sit peacefully. There's a famous story of a yogi who thought he was a Mahamudra yogi, thought he'd attained, non-thought, bliss, all these qualities. So he could sit in bliss, not thinking. He got it wrong. He said he was reborn as a cat. So still, so blissful, but basically a state of ignorance, because Mahamudra is a state of clarity and awakenedness, that in its nature is blissful and has no thoughts, but you can get it wrong. So animals cannot understand. They could attend this Dharma talk. Sometimes animals do come to Dharma talks because they like the vibe. It's kind of a nice, they feel the goodness, they feel the peacefulness. But they can't understand a word, can't understand an idea. They can't understand about karma. So then they go away and eat a mouse or kill something else. Or if they're afraid, traumatized animal, they can't receive teachings about how to deal with fear and trauma in the mind. Basically, they cannot use their existence as a way of serious progress of the mind. Of course, there are wonderful animals. They give their whole life in service to humans. Service animals. They're wonderful. They make good karma. They make some good karma. But it's not the same as what we can do, where our mind can be so clear and wise, and we can develop real compassion, real love, which is universal, not selective, and so on. So anyway, that's the suffering of animals. And then from the demigods, they fight. Through jealousy, they fight to get what they don't have the karma to have. They're always defeated. So it says at present, you could just run away from armies or enemies. But if you're reborn as a demigod, your karma is to lose. You want so much to have something, but you're a loser. I mean, we can make sense of that in the human realm. Some people, they really want, they're jealous of what other people have. They strive so hard to get it for themselves, but they've got loser karma, right? So they never get it. You put that karma on steroids and you get reborn as a demigod. Then that's what your whole life is about. It hurts. It hurts because you want so much what the others have got, and you battle to get it, and you lose every time. The losing, this is the hurt of losing. And then for the Deva realms, they have such lovely lives while it lasts. But then, at the end of their lovely lives, whatever it is, there's so many different types of devas, sensorial devas, who live in kind of the top end of samsara, sensorially. Everything they see, hear, so on, touch is so wonderful, so blissful. And then there are meditation deva realms, where you're in a state of samadhi all the time. But all of them are generated by karma, and they come to an end. And the end isn't just in a few seconds. At the end of the life, you see where you're going to be reborn next time. And you just cannot believe. I mean, we can make a parallel in a human realm. You know, it's when, like, if you lose your health, and then you know the pain, the suffering you're going to have to go through. Or when people lose their wealth and they've been used to living in a nice place with nice food, and they can afford most of what they want, and then they see they're going to be very, very poor. We can understand. You cannot believe that this can happen to me. So if you've been a deva for hundreds of thousands of years of our time, when it comes to an end, there is a pain that says, it's just so painful. And there's no way out. There's nothing you can do. Your karma's run out for the good times. There's only the karma for things you see, because you've still got deva insight. All that's going to happen to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's basically that verse. Data chigenzena drigo pur musu trilu langna chidrachi. Data magdan drala drupicho laminul dujina chitarchi. Datara tralsam mana zumuche lalu tungwi tungal zapraka. Next verse is about human rebirth. The sufferings in the three lower realms are unbearable. The pleasures of gods and humans do not last. They are so fickle. Birth, old age, sickness and death are like ripples on water. The sufferings of samsara are vast and profound. It is through fearing this endless and frightening prospect without any escape that one should shrink from misdeeds as if they were poison, and follow the sacred teachings which help us with this condition, seeing them as the antidote. Entrust yourself to the protecting, rare and precious refuges. This is about being human and about refuge. Very briefly, it's referring to teachings. He said, we ought to know, and if we don't know, then we ought to check out now. It's not giving us those teachings. So the sufferings of the three lower realms, animals, ghosts, and hells, are unbearable. The pleasures that we have, the good times, as humans and as devas, do not last. They are so fickle, we can't trust them. As humans, we have to be born, become old, get sick, and in the end die. And these are like ripples on water. The sufferings of samsara, all of it, are vast and profound. That's kind of a summary. And it's saying now, thinking about all of it, thinking about, coming back to the point, what's going to happen after we die? And short-term, bardo, but then rebirths. And another rebirth, and another rebirth, and another rebirth. It says that should frighten you. Or I'm thinking there are some Buddhists who get very upset about Buddhism using the idea of fear, saying you should be afraid of this. Fear as a Dharma tool. They think that fear, fire and brimstone and all of that sort of stuff is kind of very primitive religion. And there's some point to that, in a way. And other religions use it, fear. And they think as Buddhists we shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't be stoking up the fear in our mind. We should be getting rid of it. So we need to find what it means. What it means. So you've got lots of electricity in your house, right? If you're not an electrician and it goes wrong, would you just take things apart and play around with the wires and the circuits and all of that? Well, I hope not, unless you know what you're doing and how to protect yourself. Why not? Because you're afraid of getting an electric shock. You're afraid of getting electrocuted. When you see these big pylons and it says, so many tens of thousands of volts, do not touch, or a transformer building, do not enter, a risk to your life. You wouldn't go and play inside there, would you? Why? Because you have intelligent fear. You know it's dangerous. If you're on an airplane flight, long haul flight in cattle class, and you've already done the first 5 or 6 hours and you've tried every different position to get comfortable and you ache all over. You can't say, oh, I'm fed up with this, come fine, and open the door and go out for a walk. Because, why not? Because you're afraid of dying. A lot of fresh air out there, it might last a few seconds. But, of course, and we are afraid when you drive a car fast on the road. You can't just do anything. You are, what do we say, wary, cautious of the danger that's there. So it's good to think about this. What is useful fear? Or with people, you're afraid to say things to some people because of the reaction it's going to produce in them, or their reaction towards you. It's a useful, intelligent fear. what can and can't we do because of the power of what could happen. This is what we're talking about. It's intelligent, I don't know what you call it what you want, so that it makes sense for you. Intelligent anxiety, right? Intelligent, or now Gampopa says, when you really think about it, then you are in absolute awe and fear. That's the words he uses, awe and fear of what your next life could be. And you don't want the lower realms. And even if you've got good karma and you're going to become human again, it's going to happen to me fairly soon. All of us at time. I don't want to be a baby again. I don't want new parents. It's good enough karma. There'll be nice parents. But I don't want new parents to imprint me again. So I have to spend a lot of my life understanding, where did all this come from? I got my mother's this, my father's that, these prejudices and so on. I don't want to go back to school. Assuming I'm reborn in something somewhat similar to this. All those years in school. Oh, spare me. I don't want to be a teenager again. And then I don't want to have to take out a mortgage, worry about this, worry about that, and worry about human relationships and falling in love and out of love. And it's a lot. It's a lot. So we think, the main point is we think about the suffering of the lower realms, the suffering of the upper realms as gods and demigods, and even as humans. We have to go through all of that birth. Birth means reborn into that place with those parents. It doesn't just mean childbirth, it's not just about that. It means you're born in that place, in that country's karma, in the karma of that age. What's going on in terms of wars, politics, you're born to those parents with those brothers and sisters. This is what we mean by the sufferings of rebirth. So it says those sufferings, so many of them. And it's through fearing this that one should shrink from misdeeds as though they were poison. We take karma very seriously. And Guru Rinpoche says we keep our actions as fine as flour, grains of flour. No good thing is too small not to do. No bad thing is so small, doesn't matter if you do it. We make our life beautiful, only saying good things, only using our body to help other beings. And in our mind, which governs it all, we only think nicely about people. Sometimes the Bodhisattva teachings, they seem a bit weird. I say, why can't a Bodhisattva criticize and say, that person's bad person doing this and that, and it's not good and so on? Or why can't the Dalai Lama, Karmapa, Taisitupa criticize lamas who've made mistakes in public to tell us to avoid them? It's hard to understand what the Bodhisattva is trying to do with their mind and with their speech, where we only do good because we know in the past our minds and our speech have said good things and said bad things. Our minds have thought kindly about other people, our minds have thought harmfully. When you look at the news, do you wish ill on some of the people who are murderers, soldiers killing people, bombing people? Would you like this and this politician to fall ill or drop dead? When you hear they have dropped dead or fallen ill and can't function anymore, do you feel glad? We have a mind that is a strange, strange mixture. We want to make it only good. If we think about anybody, all we wish them is well. If we say something, it should only bring goodness to those who are listening and make them want to be more helpful to each other, harmonious. So we shrink from misdeeds of body, speech and mind as if they were poison. I mean, if I just now said that, here, I got a lovely glass of poison. It'll make you really ill for about an hour and it'll get worse and worse. Then you'll die. But it tastes really nice. Would you like it? It's actually sort of an amazing mixture of orange blossom and something so, yeah, it's really tasty. Here, have a glass of poison. What would you say? Thanks, but no thanks. So it says, think before we speak, while we're thinking, think about what we're thinking and how pure and how noble, how ethical is it. And then follow the Dharma, which helps us, shows us the way to go, and seeing all of our Dharma practices as antidotes for the poison we've got in us. So we won't accept new poison, and we realize we carry poison from the past. So then we see Dharma practice as wonderful. It's like medicine. I hear when I get stung by a mosquito, bitten, they say, don't they? Bitten by a mosquito. They don't bite, they drill actually, but anyway, bitten by a mosquito, then there's this amazing cream you put on it and the sting goes away. So we see Dharma like an antidote to poison. Did you know that camel's tears are an antidote for snake poison? In one tear from a camel's eye, you have something that's an antidote for most snake bites. It's amazing, isn't it? I don't know how you make the camel cry, but anyway, so if you're bitten by a snake, that's serious. And if you've got an antidote, chemical antidote, or camel's tear, how marvelous that is. You save your life. So Dharma, we see it, we treasure it so preciously. So that's why the concluding line is really entrust yourself to the refuges. Why are they refuges? Because they can really help you and shelter you. Like a refuge on a mountainside. There are some amazingly spectacular ones, high up on cliff faces and mountainsides. When the weather turns and it's cold and there's the storm and you can perish, that refuge is a place where you go in, you are protected. You can light a warm fire. Kind people have left tins of food on the shelves. And outside is murderous, and inside it's sweet and protected. So it says we should seek the protection of the Dharma. Where's this one? Page 19, 17. Page 19. In sum sum na dunga zela me. Nami dewa mita judokche. Jegana chi chuui nyamadra. Kowi dunga jams. Jamche. Tingzabla. Tame tadu. Mepe jikrumang. Dila trakchir. Dikla duktara zem. Dila pempe damcha mintaraten. Dela jopi kuncho pundu. Next verse says, if you haven't understood the meaning of what I've explained here, turn to these examples, which anyone can see. So these are examples now. They are sort of Tibetan, but anyway, we can extend them. Even when today's kings gather together an army, it's hard for them to muster more than 30,000. Also, it's rare to find a kingdom with more than 300,000 subjects. So this is about sort of how many humans are we and how many are the rest? How many animals? How many insects? How many demigods? How many hell beings? How many ghosts? And so on. So it says, how many humans are we? The most humans anyone ever sees together normally are in an army. And even the biggest army, he said, wouldn't be much more than 30,000. So if somebody had ever seen in Tibet in those days an army like the Mongol armies, they're talking of tens of thousands of people. And then if you think about how many subjects in a whole kingdom, it won't be more than 3,000. Detarishe pidana magana ngansum taju dawa dinamta densan japo chempogi makdu chang tritra chule mamwara dukate nashamna yangna milu topse la bumtrak chule mambo yoshichum. So then compared to that, the next verse says, the number of insects in summertime on a mountainside is far greater than the subjects of a great kingdom. The number of ants in an anthill is greater than that of all the troops of a great ruler. Look into that example to see whether or not a human existence is hard to get. Well, that's pretty straightforward. And of course, we're in Tibet of his day. Some of you, as old as me, may remember pastures and hillsides where when you walk, so many dozens of other beings jumped up, grasshoppered, tiny butterflies, moths, so many insects in a field. If you, in a not so good example, if you drove a car in the summertime, the number of dead insects on your windscreen and on your headlights, you'd have to stop the car every so often to clean them off. We're looking at a Tibetan hillside in summer. One hillside, he's saying, how many tiny living beings on that? Far more than in an army. And if you look in an anthill, so many thousands, so much more than armies or in kingdoms. Yakarisokri usindrang, jopo chempoki ngashap miwemang, jatrorere sangi tromayang, japo chempoi makpumwe damang, milu topte eka de late. So that's just to think how rare it is to be human, just human, let alone a precious human with all the Dharma qualities present. He says maybe that example will help. The next verse is about within humanity. We're human, we're all human, but look how different our karma is. So he says, consider equally strong brothers from the same parents. One gets rich while another becomes poor or a beggar. One has a short life, sickness, lots of suffering, while the sibling is rarely sick, lives long, and quite happily. Although they're alike in having attained a precious human existence, some have become powerful while others are feeble. Some are rich, yet others down and out. This is not because some are strong and others weak, some are skillful, others not. Look into it carefully to discover that it results from past life karma. Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. If we have some notion of karma, you can see you've got the karma to be born to the same parents, same country, same cultural conditioning, same family. Yet, it's taking two brothers here. One gets so rich and powerful, the other gets so poor or weak or sick. It's what he's talking about these days, we talk about as nature and nurture, the difference between those two. Nature is what's innate to us, what we're born with, and nurture is what comes through the conditioning of people and society we're in. So, this is not these days we talk about it like that. Psychology, we're trying to separate the two, if there's any difference. In Buddhism, we recognize both. Who you are now is partly because of all your psychology of this life, the influences from other people and life circumstances, your education, your parents, and so on. We can't say blame, we attribute a lot to that in psychology. In Buddhism, we recognize that, but then we have what is innate through karma, the mind you inherited through what you did with your mind in past lives, the inner you. Then it gets a bit tricky because, okay, you had these parents who treated you like that. Why? Because of your karma. So what's coming from the outside and from the nurture is also through karma and very specific. So he says, look into it carefully. That's exactly the advice. It's complicated. It's complicated. Because let's say you had nasty parents. You had the karma to have nasty parents, but then maybe inside you, in the inner you that you were born with, you had the karma to be able to deal with it. And as your life went on, to find solutions and remedies. Or maybe you didn't, because the inner you didn't have that resource, so you just had cruel parents and it traumatized you, and because of that you traumatized other people, and the thing went down through the generations. It says, look into this carefully. And you have to do that yourself. Even Ken can't tell you. Even Buddha can't tell you. We have to explore to really feel, what's going on, where it's coming from, what you can do about it. So I think let me give you the Tibetan for that. Pamachiki Gershen Yampi Pun Lala Chukchingla Lala Ulda Pong Lala Tsetung Neman Dungmache Lala Nekern Sering Yoring De Milurenchen Topa Dradrala Lala Senshing Lala Nyamchungwa Lala Chukching Lala Topching Mu Ge Shemayin Kedan Mikemin Tsengernle Dre Den Delatu. So I think we have to finish there for today. I had hoped to finish this whole chapter, but it's no point, there's not even time to rush it all. But we should finish at the beginning of the next session, which is in 2 weeks' time. And you might want to refresh your own knowledge, read the chapters on karma, cause and effect, and the 6 realms, and so on. But probably next time, we're going to start the next chapter. Now, the next chapter takes us to a new section of this book, and this is sort of the actual practice. What we looked at in these chapters, and that we're just finishing, is like preparation, foundation work, mundro for those. Now we're coming to the practice of Chinrezig itself in the next chapter. Technically, traditionally, in Tibetan Buddhism, because it is the actual practice of Chinrezig, then you should receive an empowerment of Chinrezig. You should have received an empowerment of Chinrezig before receiving the instructions. So that's a bit of a difficulty for me. I don't want to say you can't attend the following sessions because you haven't had the empowerment. I've been thinking about, the real meaning. What does it mean, empowerment? Well, what it means is connection. There's some inner heart connection between you and the Chinrezig practice. When one receives a formal empowerment ceremony, in theory, that is supposed to establish this heart connection between you and Chinrezig. I don't know if you can say when people are coming out of an empowerment ceremony, okay, everybody there got connected up. And there will be many people who, without having an empowerment, do have a heart connection with Chinrezig. So I thought, what can I do? What can we do? What can you do? Well, I doubt that in the next fortnight you can run off somewhere and find yourself a Chinrezig empowerment. In Europe, there aren't that many on offer. It's from time to time when somebody visits. You should at least want to receive a Chinrezig empowerment, not want, intend to receive one. So in the very early days of Samyeling, we were doing practices. Akon Rinpoche wasn't giving empowerments in those days. And so he said, you should intend, whenever you get the opportunity, whenever the lamas come, like the first Kalu Rinpoche or then Karmapa, you should intend to receive the empowerment. But we were doing the practices together, learning how to do them. So that is one sort of requirement. I hope you do intend to receive, ideally, the Chinrezig empowerment, but if not, then any empowerment from the type of empowerments which are called highest yoga tantra empowerments, Anuttara yoga tantra level empowerments. when, there are genuine lamas, authentic lamas coming and giving them where you can go and receive it. That will be excellent, really necessary. But if not, then in the meantime, in the next fortnight, if you haven't received empowerment, then there are online, there is our present Jawa Karmapa, 17th Karmapa, giving Chinrezig empowerment in Paris. So it was funny, in Paris, he had French interpreters, he had German interpreter putting it into English. Anyway, you can go through the whole empowerment ceremony with the Karmapa on YouTube. So this is the YouTube address, and I'll try and put it in the comments. And I'll try and hold it up now long enough so you can later pause the recording or whatever and copy it down. That's the Paris empowerment. Also, if you do a search on YouTube, there is the London empowerment. One's an empowerment ceremony, traditional, more or less, and the other is, he says that there is a way of giving empowerment, not as a ceremony, but by actually giving you instruction. He says it's one way in the past. So if you receive detailed instruction how to do the practice, that was from authentic master, that was the transmission. I think that will make a beautiful connection between you and the Mahamudra lineage, because it's Karmapa, and the Chinrezig practice. And then I will feel comfortable giving these particular instructions, because we've all got what's called good samaya. We've all kept to the rules like good boys and girls, and there's no kind of nothing that can be criticized about it. So I hope today's session was useful. It kind of covers a lot, and the main point was take your future lives seriously. Think about them. Think about them, prepare for them, and use whatever you have left of this life as a generator for so much, that's good and positive, virtuous, helpful, that you'll really appreciate. Where, you won't be saying thank God because you're a Buddhist, but you'll be saying whatever, thank Buddha I did that in my past lives. I've not got a clue what I did, but I'm so grateful to whoever I was and whatever I did, that this life has been so fruitful. So now you want to become the person you're going to be grateful to in your future lives, that you won't remember. Isn't that amazing? You won't have a clue. I won't have a clue about Ken. You won't have a clue about you. But you're going to say, thank God I did something right in the past lives. This is what this set of verses that we've covered today is saying. It's very positive. And when it talks about fear and fearing what could happen in future lives, take it positively, just like you fear electricity, you fear a car crash. So you take great care. Treat life as a curious gift. So anyway, whatever was good and useful and virtuous, let's get on the case straight away and dedicate it so that it does bring this good connection. I prostrate to the Dharmakaya, union of all the Buddhas of the 3 times, and to the one who gazes upon the 6 kinds of being, Chinrezig, 11-faced and all-pervading, like space. And I prostrate to awesomely impressive and majestic Amitabha. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Through the quintessence of all Dharma in 6 syllables, may a cloud of offerings appear. May they be presented to the peerless guide, Chinrezig, to Shakyamuni, king of the sages, the crowning glory of all the Shakyas, and to an ocean of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas and Arhats in the 10 directions, and all the Kaju Lamas. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. May the fulfillment of the wishes of the former Buddhas, the completion of the accumulation of the future Buddhas, and the long life prayers of the present Buddhas all be made manifest through the 6 syllables Om Mani Padme Hum. All those who have a karmic link with me, my father, my mother, my teachers, my relatives and friends, all those who place their hopes in me and rely on me, Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. All those who've been my benefactors and asked me not to forget them, all the kind benefactors I promised not to forget, Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way, grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. All the dead for whom lamas have been asked to say prayers, all those who passed away from this life, of whose possessions I received a share. Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way, grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. All the artisans who make Dharma goods, such as representations of the body, speech and mind of all the Buddhas, and those whose livelihood involves the belongings of lamas or the Sangha, or ransom obtained through selling sacred images or from goods folk offer out of faith. Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way, grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. The dead I've heard about or seen with my own eyes, and all those in the 3 realms of conditioned existence who passed away, Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way, grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. All those who've been murdered, killed, who died from starvation, who perished on high mountain passes, or were drowned, or those who wander in the bardo, accompanied by much sin and no virtue. Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. The most kind mother cow, whose milk and yogurt I consumed, all the animals mass farmed and otherwise cruelly exploited by humans, all the animals whose flesh and blood I've eaten, the bees and insects on whose labor humans' life depends. Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. All the pack animals overburdened with loads they can hardly bear, those beasts who were beaten while ridden, those that wouldn't budge and had their noses pierced for pulling with a rope, plough animals too, all the beasts I've exploited in past lives. Wherever they are now reborn, Protector Chinrezig, lead them on the way, grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. Those who have committed the 10 unvirtuous actions, the 5 immeasurable sins of no reprieve, the 5 sins almost as great, all those with such bad karma, Protector Chinrazik, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. Those in the hells, craving spirits, animals, jealous semigods, gods and men, all sentient beings in the 3 dimensions of existence, Protector Chinrazik, lead them on the way and grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. All those who live in the 4 elements of earth, water, fire and wind, whether in bodily form or formless, small or large, Protector Chinrazik, lead them on the way, grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. Rulers, monsters and citizens steeped in corruption, bad people who are shameless, deceitful and hypocritical, those with ill will in their hearts, Protector Chinrazik, lead them on the way, grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. Infinite as all the cosmic systems in the 10 directions, all beings as difficult to reckon as the unfathomed deeps, Protector Chinrazik, lead them on the way, grant them your blessing. They may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. Beings who live in each province of this world, or anywhere on similar planets under their suns, Protector Chinrazik, lead us all on the way and grant your blessing. We may be reborn in Dewa Chen. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Well, your turn. If you've got something you'd like to add or question, or just any feedback, how you found today's 6 realms, suffering, hells, and so on, teachings, not easy in many ways. So if you've got any feedback, it's helpful for me.
Hi, Ken, it's Maris in
Yes, hello, Maris.
Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on Monday it'll be the 49 days since the passing of my beloved dog that she, she was my companion. And just listening today about the animal realm and just how much, we had a wake for her. I didn't plan it, but people just came and brought flowers and food. And week after week, people would come and offer her things, flowers, and even the university came because we did a burial for her that was special for I don't know how to explain it in English, but using like coal, and so that she would deteriorate very well into the earth for the tree to feed the. So and then they came in, they made these beautiful steps out of bamboo, and so there's all this commotion all about her death, surrounding her death. So I just wonder if it's her karma to have brought so many people together and have so much love poured into her. And before as she was dying, I was saying the Dewa Chen Amitabha prayer mantra, and I had been telling her days before that she's going to go soon, and so I was whether she understood or not, but was always next to my practice and music. And so as you were saying, the animals don't have the pure consciousness to really understand things, but they can feel things, isn't it? So I just hope that she will go off, Dewa Chen. I really have that prayer for her as well. So.
Yeah. It's when it's said in the verse, think deeply about karma. It's not straightforward because like there with your dog, you have an example of a dog that all of its life had excellent living conditions, until
Yes.
medical treatment, when sick, never went hungry, had lots of love and
Oh,
affection,
well. Yeah.
adventures, and
Yeah.
a life that many humans would dream of. Humans who
Exactly.
never have enough to eat, who can't get medical care for their
Yeah.
treatment, who can't find love from anybody. So it's not just, really tiered and military and
Yeah.
straightforward. This human rebirth has to be better than this dog's rebirth. I mean, just think for yourself too. If
Yeah.
if I was going to be reborn next time, would I like to be that kind of a dog and, loved, well looked after, well fed and everything? Or would I rather be a human in a war zone and, I know which
Yeah.
one I'd pick, it's because it's not just the existence. So we get these guidelines with karma. And then
Mm.
it does say, when you're a dog, but the moment you
Mm.
die, then you're a liberated consciousness. And
Mm.
whatever goodness can come out of all the things that you and your friends and people who knew
Mm.
did, whatever that was, however helpful that could or
Mm.
couldn't be, then that's wonderful and good karma,
Mm.
and you don't need the consciousness that animals don't have, the cerebral consciousness, to
Mm.
understand ideas and learn Dharma. They don't have that, but it doesn't mean they can't make good karma, and they can
Yes,
have good
and
heart,
and
good mind.
yeah, yeah, and the fact of how much she helped me as a companion in this country that I couldn't understand language and just the communication of unspokenness,
Mm-hmm.
And I did have one kind of a miracle in a way that one day I was sitting under the mother tree where she is, and birds came really close to me, very, very close, and sometimes a wind would come, and so it's kind of maybe somehow there's a learning about trusting just the process of that, of death, and teaching me something about death,
Yeah,
to,
it
to
could
help
be.
my grief. It could be anything.
This was after she died.
Yeah,
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 so after she died, then
yeah.
her ongoing being, wherever it is, could have been very grateful to you. And then when the connections made, when we receive the gratitude from those
Mm,
we've made good connections with, it can make for a special sacred type experience. And because you're in that place of
mm,
grace, animals can come to you and you can feel specialness, the special other dimensions of the tree you're under.
mm. Yeah, thank you.
Sometimes we get beings that we've been close to one way or another who come back as invisible spirits in future lives, and they protect us, help us. And then the ones we've been naughty to come back, and they can make our life, they can spoil things again and again.
And I'm interested in an antidote for the hungry ghost realm karma.
Well, practice generosity, and I mean, physically as much as one can. And generosity means sharing wealth, but it also means giving of oneself, giving time, helping lonely people or whatever it is. And then on a Dharma level, making offerings with deep sincerity and integrity, so that as we're making the offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas with the intention of benefiting all beings, then there are ways of doing that where we multiply. It's called the offering clouds, where the one thing you're offering turns into, say, 100. So you're offering 101, and each one of the 100 offerings multiplies into 100 again, so that even if you're offering one butter lamp, one candle, then as you imagine all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, they become endless and they're so wonderful. And then your one candle becomes 100, and they become 100 hundreds, and 100 times 100 times 100, until the whole universe is filled with light of all different kinds of qualities, jewel light, sunlight, moonlight, all of it being offered up. And then from your heart you dedicate, as that's happening, you think, if only this could benefit all beings. When you offer the first mouthful of food, the same thing. You think not just this bit of potato, but all the most wonderful foods in the world. And then each different type of food, sweet, savory, and so on. And then 100-fold, 1,000-fold offered to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Arhats. And then through them, the benefit, feeding the hungry everywhere in the world. That kind of very sacred way of offering, when we're in nature and we see beauty and we feel the benefit, we offer it. When we receive anything, buy new clothing, then we offer it, and 1,000, 100,000 times more, thinking, may the poor receive clothing, and or like that, or in leading everyday life. We get every day so many opportunities to practice a generous state of mind, and a huge kind of, more than we could ever afford to give ourselves. And that should in itself be an antidote to the hungry ghost karma we've got. When we do Chenrezig practice, then we have a very special way of doing it, as we see when we come to the practice, through the Om Mani Padme Hum syllables. So Om Mani Padme Me, the Me syllable, is very particularly linked to the spirit and hungry ghost realms. So the sort of things I've been saying, we associate with the syllable Me, so that all this kind of thousands of multiplications and really helping these ones, the hungry, the poor, the destitute, and the ghosts themselves, we condense it all into the syllable Me by association. So for us, Me becomes all of that. So every time we say Om Mani Padme Hum, deep in our mind, Me is benefiting in the way that we've rehearsed. It's a question of conditioning, association for our minds. So Me isn't just a sound, not just a syllable. It's the whole benefiting of the destitute.
Wow, that is such a generous offer on your part. And about the offering cloud process, is that formal? Like I hook up with some, like a...
There's a prayer, if you've got, I don't know if you probably not, but the Kajumana booklet of prayers, and you can download that as an ebook. Then it's in there. It's one of the things. It's the office, it's like the offerings of Samanta Bhadra. And
yeah. Thank you so much.
So you can do a formal prayer, but I mean, the main thing is that's the way you are, can you say, being, vibrating. You're not just eating a half a potato, a mouthful of potato. You really mean it. And it is beautiful because your potato becomes, cordon bleu delicacies offered to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and living lamas now, And I think the really meaning it is always the most important. It says in texts like the one we're doing now, in the oral instructions, really meaning it is worth 100 million times doing the formal prayer.
Oh, thank you. Wow. I feel like being born as an American into a consumer culture. I'm trying to really be accountable to that karma right now in my life and how to reverse that. I see it as a hungry ghost realm sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. When we do the Chinrezig practice and all the teachings in particular around generosity, the good cause, and hungry ghosts, the bad result of not having been generous but having been mean and selfish. When we really look into that, it is the going beyond the illusion of self, which is the most generous gift we can give to anybody. And we need to really do that, not just subscribe to the idea, but really through meditation, through Dharma practice, look into ourselves and think, what the hell am I? Who the hell am I? And seeing both the delusions of self, which come and go like clouds, and then finding this pure space in which all that happens, where the Buddhas have always been, and that's who we really are. And when we do the actual practice, we really are Chinrezig. So that going beyond delusions of a personal me into the truth of who we are, that is like really concentrated. I'm thinking of adverts, contains 100 times what other soap powders contain or whatever. That's the really best antidote of all.
Yes. Yes. Oh, thank you so much for that generous response.
Thank you. You're welcome. Sublime silence. Okay. So now next week is our monthly Tonglen training. For those who come to that, we'll carry on with Karma Chamé's teachings a fortnight from now. So take good care until then. And if you haven't received a Chinrezig empowerment, even if you have, you might like to watch the video of the Karmapa giving it. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Ken.
Hi.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Try now. Try everyone.